All right, we're back. I've made a few changes between recordings. Now, I haven't done anything galactic. Really, all I did was I changed the white walls. I just took that same tileable brick texture and dragged them and dropped them onto the walls. Didn't really do any adjustments beyond that. The other thing that I did that you probably notice is that I have renamed all of those cubes to wall. Just think that's less lazy looking. And I made an empty game object here, and I stuck all of those cubes, those walls, beneath this sort of empty game object. And this allows me to keep my hierarchy organized, so I can sort of roll this up and down and just really just keep things clean. So what we want to do for our next step is to create a nav mesh. Now, a nav mesh is just an area where we're going to apply some sort of navigational algorithm. Now, here's the good news before you start freaking out on me. Unity is going to do all of the hard math for us. We don't have to know how to implement the A-star algorithm in order to get our characters to move around on this mesh. So here's all we really need to do to get this working. And I'm just going to make a really simple one. We'll make some more extensive ones a little bit later. We need to select all of the geometry that's going to make up our area. In this case, it's going to be all the walls and the floor. I guess I probably should call one of these floor. Nevertheless, I've picked them all, and I need to go into the navigation tab. Now, if the navigation tab isn't here, you're usually looking at the inspector tab. If the navigation tab is not here, then just go up to Window and find Navigation and click that, and the tab will appear next to the inspector tab. So I've got my navigation tab selected. I've got all of my walls selected, and one of them is the floor. And I just need to select this navigation static checkbox. So all of that's fine. Everything now is navigation static. What this means is it's something that doesn't move, and that's very important. You can't have a piece of geometry that's moving around be part of your nav mesh. Next, I'll go over to the bake area right over here. Makes it sound like we're making cookies, and we kind of are. And here you can adjust all the parameters for how your nav mesh is generated. Now, I'm not going to mess with any of them right now, but I'll tell you what these are. These allow you to configure how tightly characters can go around corners. And this will make a huge difference for us a little bit later, because we're going to have a character with a weapon, a big old sword. And if we don't take into account how wide the character is and how the character moves, you're going to get things like the sword goes through the wall, or characters are going to get stuck in corners and things like that. And that's not what we want. So we are going to have to adjust these later, but for now I'm just going to leave them alone. And then the other setting that this is looking at over here with this angle here is how characters are going to deal with inclines. We don't have any inclines on our maze, so we probably don't need to do anything with that. But we're just going to make this standard nav mesh with the default parameters so you can see how it works. So all of these are fine. I'm just going to leave these alone. I'm going to click the bake button down here in the corner, and it should turn blue. So this is our nav mesh area. So the blue area that we can see in here, this is the area where our characters will be able to navigate using the nav mesh. And that's pretty much all there is to it. This is a very simple system to use, and it's also very powerful. One thing I want to point out before we jump into the next thing, though, I'm going to zoom in so you can see how tight these corners really are. They're really tight. And so characters are going to be able to they're going to try to find the closest way. So if you're going to have a character move, say, from up here to down here, they're really going to hug the wall, and they're really going to go tightly around those corners. So we're probably going to want to adjust these radii a little bit later. But let's go ahead and next get our character in there so that we can start working with that. And really, you can't adjust your radii until you know what the character is going to be and how it moves and what its colliders look like, all of that stuff. So let's go ahead and do that next.